Okay, don't lick the plasma conduit. Kale scrambled back, boots skidding on the buckled deck plating. His voice was tight, strained over the shriek of failing life support. The alien woman, more girl really, though judging age on a species that looked like liquid starlight poured into a vaguely humanoid shape was a fool's game, paused, her tongue darting back into a mouth Kale really didn't want to think about right now, especially since he'd just seen the glint of something impossibly sharp in there. She tilted her head, the cluster of delicate bioluminescent tendrils framing her face shifting like kelp in an unseen current. Her skin, a deep indigo that seemed to absorb the emergency lighting, pulsed with faint turquoise patterns. They swirled across her high cheekbones and down her slender neck. A low, resonant hum vibrated in the cramped space of the cockpit, a sound that felt less heard and more felt, settling deep in his bones. It wasn't coming from the dying ship. It was coming from her. She cocked her head again, mimicking his earlier movement. Her eyes, large and entirely black, seemed to drink him in. Then slowly, deliberately, she smiled. And Kale's stomach plummeted. The title wasn't kidding. Her teeth, moments before looking relatively normal if a bit pointy, were now elongating, sharpening into rows of needle-fine iridescent daggers. Holy shit. Right, Kale breathed, forcing himself not to stare directly at the dental nightmare unfolding inches from potentially leaky, highly volatile plasma. Friendly, got it. Super friendly. He raised his hand slowly, palms out. Look, Sparkles, I don't know how you got onto my ship, or why you're apparently trying to taste test the power core during a catastrophic hull breach, but we have maybe 5 minutes before this whole beautiful disaster folds in on itself like cheap origami. Comprende? Exit. Out, big boom avoidance. The humming intensified slightly, the turquoise patterns on her skin brightening, swirling faster. She took a step toward him, graceful despite the canted floor and the intermittent gravity flickers. She was taller than him by a few inches, lean muscle apparent beneath the shimmering skin. A long, thin tail, the same deep indigo edged with glowing turquoise, gave a slow, deliberate flick behind her, narrowly missing a sparking console. She reached out a hand, 3 long fingers and an opposable thumb, tipped with claws that looked decorative but probably weren't. He flinched back instinctively. Her smile widened fractionally, the sharp teeth seeming to catch the red emergency lights. The hum deepened, resonated, and suddenly Kale felt weird. Not scared exactly, more fuzzy, like static building behind his eyes. You loud, she said. Her voice was a low, melodious contralto, layered with that same pervasive hum. It vibrated right through his sternum. And break things, Kale sputtered. I break things, lady. My ship is currently imitating a crushed soda can because something else shot it down. And you're the one trying to French kiss the engine. She blinked slowly, the motion strangely hypnotic. The turquoise light pulsed. Engine warm, smells interesting. Kale stared. She smelled the plasma flow. Interesting isn't the word I'd use. Instantly fatal is probably closer. He gestured wildly at the groaning bulkhead. We need to get to the escape pods, assuming they haven't been turned into scrap metal. He took a cautious step toward the corridor hatchway, keeping her in his peripheral vision. Come on, move it, Glimmerteeth, unless you enjoy atmospheric re-entry without protective shielding. Her smile didn't fade, but the intensity of the light patterns on her skin softened slightly. The teeth remained alarmingly sharp. She followed him, her movements fluid and unnervingly silent. The humming persisted, a constant thrum against his senses. He could feel it settling under his skin, a strange counterpoint to the adrenaline pounding through his veins. This was bad. Crashing was bad. Being stranded was bad. Being stranded with a cryptic alien who communicated through glowy bits, unnerving hums, and teeth that looked like they could shred Durasteel. That was a whole new category of screwed. And the weirdest part. That fuzzy feeling wasn't entirely unpleasant. It was unsettling, dangerous, probably lethal, but intriguing, like touching a live wire just to feel the buzz. He really needed to get his priorities straight. Survival first. Figure out the glowing, sharp-toothed enigma later, if there was a later. Kale slammed his palm against the escape pod bay door release. Nothing. Sparks showered from the fried panel. Scrap metal it is, he muttered, kicking the uncooperative metal. Plan B, he glanced back at the alien woman, Lyra. She'd offered the name in that resonant voice of hers somewhere between the wreckage and this dead end, the sound settling strangely familiar in his mind. She was examining a flickering light fixture with intense curiosity, her tail tracing lazy patterns on the debris-strewn floor. The sharp teeth were still visible, though the smile was more of a neutral, inquisitive expression now. The turquoise patterns on her skin ebbed and flowed gently. Plan B involves cutting our way through the service crawlspace to the secondary cargo hold, Cale announced, already pulling his multi-tool from his belt. There's an old emergency skiff tucked away in there, pressurized, barely functional but better than nothing. Lyra turned from the light, her dark eyes fixing on him. The humming intensified slightly. Skiff, small ship, slow ship, hopefully working ship. He aimed the multi-tool's cutting laser at the access panel bolts. Metal glowed cherry red, then dripped. It's tight quarters, hope you're not claustrophobic. He risked another glance. She was watching his hands, her head tilted. The glow on her skin pulsed in time with the laser's whine. Tight good, she murmured, the sound sending another wave of that weird fuzziness through him. He gritted his teeth, focusing on the bolts. Good. What did she mean, good? His skin prickled. Was this some kind of Zalosian, the species name she'd hummed at him earlier, flirting, or just a statement about spatial preference? With her, the line felt dangerously blurred. The panel clanged open, revealing a dark, narrow shaft. Okay, ladies first, or whatever you are first. Lyra glided forward, peering into the darkness. The bioluminescence on her tendrils and tail brightened, casting an ethereal turquoise glow into the shaft. She sniffed the air delicately. Smells old, dusty. She slipped inside with unnerving agility, her tail disappearing last. Cale hesitated for only a second before following, the multi-tool's light cutting a weak beam ahead. The crawlspace was barely wide enough for his shoulders. Behind him, he could feel the heat radiating from Lyra, hear the soft scuff of her passage and that ever-present bone-deep hum. It was distracting, intimate in a way that set his teeth on edge. He felt hyper-aware of her proximity, the subtle shifts in her humming, the way the faint turquoise light reflected off the metallic walls, occasionally illuminating the sharp profile of her face when she glanced back. So, he grunted, wriggling forward. Zalosian, huh? What brings one of your kind onto a derelict freighter orbiting a forgotten moon? The humming dipped, then rose again. Seeking. Seeking what? Trouble because you found it. Seeking resonance. He paused. Resonance like good vibes. Lyra stopped, forcing him to halt inches behind her. He could feel the warmth intensifying. She turned her head slightly, her dark eyes catching his in the gloom. The turquoise light flared. Resonance, connection, the current beneath. Her voice was low, serious. And for a terrifying second, Cale felt a pull, a strange answering thrum inside his own chest, mirroring her hum. He jerked back mentally, shaking his head. No, absolutely not. Guarded, remember. Resist bonding, stay free. Right, deep stuff, he said, trying to sound dismissive. Let's focus on the current that doesn't involve metaphysical mumbo-jumbo and does involve getting us off this rust bucket. He pushed forward again, deliberately bumping her slightly. She didn't move immediately, letting the contact linger. The skin where his shoulder brushed her back felt smooth, cool despite the radiating heat. The hum spiked, sending a jolt through him, almost like static electricity but deeper, more invasive. Her tail brushed against his leg, a feather-light touch that made his breath hitch. Then she moved forward again, the moment broken. But the air in the cramped tunnel felt thicker now, charged with something unspoken. The humming continued. A low, insistent vibration against his back, a constant reminder of the strange, sharp-toothed alien leading him through the dark. And Cale couldn't shake the feeling that type being good wasn't just about the crawlspace. The skiff coughed, sputtered, and finally roared to life with a shudder that rattled Cale's teeth. Ugly, slow, but she flies, he declared, patting the worn console. Or limps vigorously through space. He glanced over at Lyra, who was crammed into the co-pilot seat, looking decidedly unimpressed. Her long legs were drawn up, her tail coiled neatly beside her, though the tip occasionally flicked against the bulkhead. The cramped cockpit forced them into close proximity, knees occasionally brushing, shoulders bumping when the skiff hit minor turbulence from the asteroid field they were navigating. Her humming was a low, constant presence, a baseline thrum beneath the engine's grumble. The turquoise patterns on her skin were faint now, a soft, underwater glow in the dim cabin light. Her teeth, thankfully, looked normal again. Mostly. "This vessel's small," Lyra observed, running a finger over a cracked viewport. The movement was strangely mesmerizing. "Smells of old fear," Cale snorted. "Probably mine. This thing's been through a few scrapes." He adjusted their trajectory, dodging a chunk of rock. "So, resonance, is that like a Xylosian dating app? Swipe right for compatible humming." Lyra turned her head, her black eyes unreadable. A flicker of brighter turquoise danced across her cheekbones. "It is alignment, finding one whose inner current matches, strengthens." She paused, her gaze lingering on his hands on the controls. "Rare. Sounds complicated and dangerously permanent." He preferred simple, temporary. No strings, no humming, no weirdly sharp teeth involved. "And what happens when you find this resonance?" The turquoise flared again, brighter this time, swirling down her neck and along the delicate lines of her collarbone, visible above the simple, dark tunic she wore. Her lips curved into a faint smile, just enough to hint at the points of her teeth. Joining, sharing, becoming more. The air thickened again. Cale focused determinedly on the asteroid field, gripping the controls tighter than necessary. Joining, sharing, more. It sounded suspiciously like commitment wrapped in alien metaphysics. "Nope, not interested." "Right. Well, good luck with that," he said, aiming for Breezy. "My alignment is usually with whoever's paying me or whoever's not shooting at me. Simple." Lyra leaned slightly closer, the movement fluid, deliberate. He could feel the warmth radiating from her, smell a faint, clean scent like ozone and exotic blooms. "Simple is illusion," she murmured, her voice dropping lower, the hum intensifying, vibrating through the seat up his spine. "Everything connects. Energy flows, even between guarded ones." Her fingers brushed his arm, just below the rolled-up sleeve of his flight suit. It wasn't accidental. The touch was feather-light, but it sent a jolt straight to his core, stronger than the crawlspace bump. The fuzzy feeling returned, intensified, swirling behind his eyes. He instinctively pulled his arm back, heart rate kicking up. "Hey, pilot needs his space sparkles, especially when navigating space rocks." Lyra retracted her hand, but the smile lingered, knowing. The turquoise patterns pulsed brightly for a moment before subsiding. "Fear makes your energy spike," she observed, tilting her head. "Sharp. Like static." "It's called adrenaline," he retorted, trying to regain control of his suddenly unsteady breathing. "Normal reaction to near-death experiences and potentially invasive aliens." Invasive. The word held a note of curiosity, maybe amusement. The humming shifted, a complex rhythm he was starting to unconsciously recognize. "Is proximity invasion? Is touch?" She leaned forward again, her face closer now, those dark eyes searching his. He could see the intricate detail and the shifting light patterns on her skin, the faint iridescence of her sharp canines even when her lips were barely parted. "Or is it invitation?" Cale swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. Invitation to what? More fuzzy feelings. Getting his face potentially shredded by enthusiastic alien teeth, or something else entirely, something that scared him more than crashing ships or dodging asteroids. He forced a sarcastic grin. "Invitation to get us safely to the nearest civilized outpost so I can drop you off and you can go resonate with someone else. That's the only invitation on the table." Lyra held his gaze for a long moment, the humming a tangible presence between them. Then she leaned back, the light on her skin softening. "As you wish, Cale." But her eyes held a spark, a playful challenge. And the way her tail gave a slow, deliberate sweep across the back of his seat felt anything but compliant. The small, ugly skiff suddenly felt even smaller. "Civilized outpost," Cale grumbled, peering through the skiff's viewport at the collection of rusted domes and flickering neon signs clinging precariously to a barren asteroid. "More like last chance saloon before the void eats you." Xantus Station. A haven for smugglers, gamblers, and those generally wishing to avoid Imperial patrols. Not exactly five-star accommodation, but it had fuel, supplies, and hopefully someone willing to take a potentially problematic Xylosian off his hands. Problem was, Lyra wasn't acting problematic. Not in the causing trouble sense, anyway. She'd been quiet for the last leg of the journey, watching the star-strewn void with an unnerving stillness. The humming was softer, almost melancholic, the lights on her skin muted blues and greens. The playful teasing had vanished, replaced by something introspective. It was almost more unsettling than the sharp-toothed smiles. He cut the engines, the skiff settling onto a designated landing pad with a clang. All right, end of the line. He unbuckled his harness. You need credits, a contact, I can maybe spare a few. Lyra didn't move immediately. She turned her head slowly, her dark eyes seeming to see right through the bravado he was trying to project. You wish me to leave? It wasn't a question. The humming was low, a barely perceptible vibration. Look, it's not personal, Cale said, trying not to sound defensive. We crashed together, we survived together. That's the deal. Now we go our separate ways. You go find your resonance. I go find a new ship, clean slate. He avoided her gaze, busying himself with the shutdown sequence. The silence stretched, broken only by the skiff's cooling ticks and Lyra's soft hum. My people are scattered, she said finally, her voice quiet. Hunted. Resonance is not easily found now. Connection is risk. Cale paused. Hunted. That explained why she was hiding on a derelict freighter. It added a layer he hadn't considered, a vulnerability beneath the sharp teeth and dominant curiosity. He still didn't want the complication, but a flicker of unwanted empathy stirred within him. Risk is the name of the game out here, he said gruffly. Doesn't mean you stop playing. He finally looked at her. The lights on her skin were swirling slowly like troubled water. Why were they hunting you? Lyra hesitated, her gaze dropping to her hands. I carry a memory, a map. To a place of refuge, others want it. So she wasn't just an exile, she was a target, and he'd been planning to just dump her on a notorious pirate outpost. Great, guilt gnawed at him. Okay, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. Okay, new plan, we stick together, just until we get you somewhere safer than this galactic cesspit. Deal. Her head snapped up, eyes wide. The turquoise light flared instantly, brilliantly, chasing away the blues and greens. A slow, genuine smile spread across her face, and this time when her teeth sharpened, it didn't feel threatening. It felt unguarded, hopeful. The fuzzy feeling washed over him again, warm and surprisingly pleasant. Deal, she breathed, the hum rising, resonating through the small cabin, making the damaged console vibrate faintly. She reached out instinctively, her fingers hovering just above his arm where she'd touched him before. He didn't pull away this time. He just watched her, watched the swirling light, the sharp, happy teeth, the undisguised relief in her eyes. Maybe tight wasn't so bad after all. Maybe connection wasn't the terrifying void he'd imagined. Or maybe he was just an idiot, charmed by glowing skin and a dangerous smile. Probably the latter. But as they prepared to disembark onto the grimy platform of Xantus Station, the prospect of facing whatever came next didn't feel quite so daunting with her strange, resonant presence beside him. Even if sticking together dramatically increased the odds of getting shot at. Again. Xantus Station's main concourse was a chaotic assault on the senses. Shouting vendors, clanging machinery, the reek of recycled air and fried alien delicacies, beings of a dozen species jostling for space under flickering holographic ads. Cale kept a hand near the blaster holstered at his hip, scanning the crowd. Lyra walked beside him, a calm epicenter in the swirling chaos. Her bioluminescence was muted, blending slightly with the station's gaudy lights, but her senses seemed heightened. Her head tilted constantly, catching snippets of conversation, her dark eyes tracking movements Cale missed. Her tail, usually expressive, was held low, almost defensively. The constant hum was still there, a subtle vibration he felt more than heard, a private frequency in the public noise. Okay, priority 1, supplies and ship repairs, Cale said, steering them towards a grimy marketplace alcove. Priority 2, finding info on who might be hunting you without broadcasting that we're looking. Lyra nodded, her gaze sharp. They use trackers, resonant signatures, hard to mask. Great, so they can hum their way right to you, Cale sighed. We need a tech witch, someone who deals in shielding and ghost signals. He spotted a likely candidate, a Rhodian hunched over a datapad amidst piles of salvaged tech, radiating an aura of cynical competence. Wait here. Try not to look conspicuously alien or like you're carrying galactic secrets." Lyra gave him a dry look, the corners of her lips twitching. Even her muted state had room for sarcasm. "I will endeavor to appear mundane." Kale approached the Rhodian, initiating the delicate dance of outpost negotiation. Lyra leaned against a corroded support beam, observing the flow of the crowd. Kale kept half an eye on her, acutely aware of her presence even with his back turned. He saw a hulking, four-armed Bruvian attempting to haggle aggressively with a nearby stall owner. He saw a pair of shifty-looking humans in synth-leather jackets scanning the faces nearby. He saw Lyra's head snap up, her body going tense. Her muted lights flared briefly, a sharp turquoise spike, before dimming again. Her gaze was fixed on the two humans. Kale quickly concluded his business with the Rhodian, securing a promise of discretion and some under-the-table shielding tech. He turned back just as the two humans started moving purposefully towards Lyra. "Shit." He strode quickly towards her, putting himself between her and the approaching figures. "Problem?" he asked, his voice low, hand now resting on his blaster grip. The lead human, scarred and smelling faintly of cheap stims, grinned unpleasantly. "Just admiring the exotic merchandise. Haven't seen one of her kind around here before." His eyes flickered over Lyra, predatory and assessing. Lyra's hand rested lightly on Kale's back, fingers splayed. He felt a sudden, intense surge of warmth through his suit, accompanied by a sharp spike in her humming, vibrating right through his bones. It wasn't fuzzy this time. It felt like power, a coiled spring. "She's with me," Kale said flatly. "And she's not for sale, move along." The second human chuckled, a nasty, grating sound. "Feisty, we just want to ask the lady a few questions. Our employer is very interested in resonant signatures." Double shit. They knew. Lyra's grip tightened fractionally on his back. He felt the hum intensify further, a low growl rumbling in her chest. The air around them seemed to crackle. Kale drew his blaster. "Last chance, walk away." The first human's grin widened. He reached inside his jacket. Time seemed to slow. Kale tensed, ready to fire. But before he could, Lyra moved. She surged forward, not attacking but placing herself directly in the path of the first human. Her bioluminescence exploded outwards, a blinding wave of pure turquoise light, accompanied by a sonic pulse of her hum that hit Kale like a physical blow, staggering him despite the protective touch on his back. The two humans recoiled, hands flying to their eyes and ears, howling in pain and disorientation. They stumbled back, crashing into market stalls, scattering goods and patrons. Lyra stood straight, bathed in the receding turquoise glow, her teeth fully extended, sharp and fierce. Her eyes blazed. The entire concourse had fallen silent, all eyes on them. "Next time," Lyra's voice resonated, cutting through the sudden quiet, carrying unnatural weight, "do not provoke what you do not understand." The power radiating from her was immense, primal. Kale stared, blaster still raised, his heart pounding not just from the confrontation but from the raw display of her energy. This wasn't just glowing and humming. This was control. This was force. The fuzzy feeling was gone, replaced by awe and a healthy dose of fear. Not fear of her, but fear for what they were up against if people were actively hunting this kind of power. He lowered his blaster slowly. "Okay," he breathed, meeting her intense gaze. "Okay, point taken." The turquoise light softened, receding back into her skin, though the sharp teeth remained for a moment longer. The protective warmth on his back faded, leaving a tingling echo. The moment of intense connection, of shared defense, lingered in the air between them. It was terrifying and exhilarating, and it felt disturbingly like the floor had just dropped out from under his carefully constructed emotional defenses. Staying together just got a whole lot more complicated and necessary. They were back in the skiff, the newly installed masking tech humming softly alongside Lyra's now calmer, steadier resonance. Xanthus Station dwindled behind them, a grubby star in the black. The silence in the cockpit wasn't awkward this time. It was charged, humming with the residue of the confrontation and Lyra's display of power. Kale risked a glance at her. She was gazing out at the void again, but her posture was relaxed, the lights on her skin a gentle, swirling mix of blue and violet. Her teeth were back to their normal, only slightly alarming pointiness. So, Kale started, keeping his voice low. That was something. Provoke what you do not understand. Nice line, very dramatic. Lyra turned her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. The violet light deepened. Truth is often dramatic. Truth is you nearly blew out my eardrums along with theirs, he countered, though without any real heat. Thanks for the warning. You were shielded. Her gaze drifted to his arm, the spot her hand had rested on his back. I felt your energy accept it. He shifted uncomfortably. He had felt it, not just the hum but a sense of her intent, a wave of protective energy flowing into him just before the blast. It hadn't been unpleasant, far from it, which was the problem. Right, well, try not to make a habit of it, attracts the wrong kind of attention. Attention found us regardless, she pointed out softly. The map. Yeah, the map, he sighed, plotting a course through a less trafficked nebula. This refuge place, is it real, worth getting hunted across the galaxy for? Lyra nodded, her expression turning serious. It is ancestral ground, a place of safety, where the resonance is strong, pure, where my people might gather again, heal. She looked at him, her dark eyes searching his face. It is hope, Kale. He felt that unwanted flicker of empathy again, stronger this time. Hope was a rare commodity out here. Dangerous, too. It made you take risks, like helping a hunted alien find a mythical sanctuary, like letting her touch feel less like an invasion and more like an anchor. He cleared his throat. Okay, ancestral ground it is, assuming we can decode this map memory of yours. It is not data, she explained. It is resonance, a frequency, a feeling. I must be close, attuned to follow it. She gestured vaguely towards the star charts. Somewhere in that direction, Kale groaned. A feeling. You navigate by galactic vibes. That's even worse than hyperlane lottery. Despite his words, he adjusted their course, angling them towards the vast, unexplored sector she'd indicated. Why not? His life was already off the rails. Might as well chase cosmic resonance with a glowing alien whose teeth sharpened when she was happy, angry, or apparently feeling protective. Suddenly, Lyra leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the nebula ahead. The lights on her skin shifted, brightening, coalescing into intricate, rapidly changing patterns of gold and emerald. Her humming spiked, becoming complex, melodic. What is it? Kale asked, instantly alert. Sensors aren't picking up anything. There, she whispered, pointing a slender finger towards a swirling cloud of iridescent gas. The current, it calls. Her breathing quickened, her pupils dilating slightly. The sharpened teeth reappeared, not with aggression but with intense concentration, maybe even pleasure. It was like she was tasting the energy in the void. Kale stared at the spot she indicated. Nothing, just gas and dust. But Lyra was practically vibrating in her seat, her entire being focused on that empty patch of space. The air in the cockpit grew warm, thick with her energy, with that insistent, compelling hum. It wrapped around Kale, pulling at him, that strange resonance echoing inside his own chest again, stronger than ever before. It wasn't just fuzzy anymore. It was a physical sensation, a deep thrumming that seemed to want to synchronize with hers. He felt an inexplicable urge to reach out, to touch her, to bridge the small gap between their seats. His hand half lifted before he caught himself, gripping the controls tighter instead. What the hell was happening to him? This resonance thing wasn't just her connection to the map. It felt like it was actively trying to connect him to her. Lyra turned to him, her eyes luminous, blazing with the gold and emerald light reflected from her skin. Her sharp-toothed smile was radiant, intoxicating. It is close, Kale, the path, I feel it. Her excitement was palpable, infectious, and terrifyingly intimate. He felt caught in her current, swept along by her focus, her energy. His carefully guarded walls felt thin, porous. It was too much, too fast. He needed air. He needed distance. But there was nowhere to go, trapped in the small skiff, hurtling towards an invisible cosmic vibe, drawn in by an alien woman who hummed his defenses down and smiled with teeth like beautiful, deadly stars. The skiff plunged into the nebula. Colors Kale had never imagined exploded outside the viewport, swirling vortexes of amethyst, rivers of molten gold, fields of emerald fire. It was breathtaking, disorienting. The ship bucked and shuddered as they hit pockets of unstable energy. Kale wrestled with the controls, his knuckles white. Beside him, Lyra was a beacon in the chaos. Her bioluminescence blazed, mirroring the external spectacle, shifting, swirling, impossibly bright. Her hum was a powerful driving force, a melody weaving through the nebula's chaotic symphony. Her eyes were closed, head tilted back, a look of intense ecstasy and concentration on her face. Her sharpened teeth were fully visible, catching the ambient light. She wasn't just sensing the path, she seemed to be communing with the nebula itself. "Lyra, little help here," Kale yelled over the roar of protesting stabilizers. "Which way through this light show?" Her eyes snapped open, locking onto his. They glowed with reflected nebular light and her own inner fire. "Trust the current, Kale. Feel it, feel it." He was feeling turbulence that threatened to tear the skiff apart. But then, amidst the physical rattling, he felt it again, that deep, resonant thrum inside him, pulling, guiding. It pulsed in time with Lyra's humming, a steady beat beneath the chaos. Hesitantly, experimentally, he eased his death grip on the controls, letting his instincts, guided by that strange internal pulse, dictate the minor course corrections. The skiff seemed to respond, slipping through energy shears, riding gravitational eddies like a void surfer. It felt effortless. Insane, but effortless. He glanced at Lyra. She was watching him, a slow, knowing smile spreading across her face. The emerald and gold lights intensified, swirling with pleasure, with approval. The hum deepened, wrapping around him like a warm embrace. It wasn't just guidance anymore, it felt like sharing. Like her energy was flowing into him, steadying him, synchronizing them. This was the resonance she'd spoken of. Not just finding a match, but actively aligning, strengthening each other. It was intoxicating, terrifying. He felt exposed, vulnerable, his carefully guarded core resonating with hers, defenses crumbling under the sheer force of her presence, the beauty of the nebula, the intensity of the connection. Suddenly, alarms blared. A massive energy surge erupted directly ahead, a blinding wall of white fire. "Hold on," Kale shouted, throwing all power to the reverse thrusters. Too late. The wave hit them like a physical fist, tossing the skiff end over end. Kale was slammed against his restraints, the world dissolving into a blur of color and G-force. He heard Lyra cry out, a sharp, resonant sound cut short. Then darkness. He came to slowly, consciousness returning like sludge. His head throbbed. The skiff was silent, adrift. Emergency lights cast long, eerie shadows. He tasted blood. "Lyra," he croaked, fumbling with his harness release. He stumbled out of his seat, his legs unsteady. Lyra was slumped in the co-pilot chair, unnervingly still. Her vibrant glow was gone, replaced by a faint, flickering indigo like dying embers. Her skin looked dull, almost gray. Her eyes were closed. Panic seized Kale. "Lyra, hey!" He reached her side, gently touching her shoulder. Her skin was cold. The humming was gone, utterly silent. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through his disorientation. He lightly slapped her cheek. "Come on, Sparkles, wake up, don't do this." Her eyelids fluttered weakly. She moaned, a low, pained sound. Her hand lifted slightly, reaching towards him. He took it instinctively. Her fingers were icy, trembling. "Kale," she whispered, her voice thin, fragile, energy depleted. The surge, her eyes met his, filled with pain but also a flicker of that familiar light. Too bright. He knelt beside her chair, gripping her hand tightly. Her vulnerability was a physical blow. Seeing her diminished, her vibrant energy extinguished, twisted something inside him. He felt a fierce, unexpected surge of protectiveness. Okay, just rest," he said, his voice rough with emotion he didn't want to examine too closely. I'll figure something out." He looked around the darkened cockpit. Systems were offline. They were dead in the water, lost in a hostile nebula, and she was hurt, drained. But she was alive, and she was holding his hand. As he held her cold fingers, trying to will warmth back into them, he felt a faint, almost imperceptible vibration against his palm. A tiny pulse of her hum, weak but persistent. A flicker of turquoise light sparked deep within her skin, then faded. Hope, fragile but present. He squeezed her hand gently. Forget the map, forget the hunters, forget getting away. Right now there was only this. Her fragile pulse against his skin, the shared silence in the wrecked skiff. The terrifying, undeniable knot of feeling tightening in his chest. He wasn't resisting anymore. He couldn't. Kale worked frantically, bypassing fried circuits, coaxing minimal power back into the skiff's essential systems. Life support first, then basic navigation to get them out of the energy storm's path. Every so often he'd glance back at Lyra. She remained slumped in the chair, her breathing shallow, the faint indigo light flickering weakly. She hadn't spoken again, conserving what little energy she had left. The silence was heavy, punctuated only by his muttered curses and the sparks from his multi-tool. He finally got the internal atmospheric controls stabilized, and a weak signal pinging their location, useless unless someone happened to be nearby, but better than nothing. He sank back into his pilot's seat, exhausted, grimy, and aching. He looked at Lyra again. The cold, analytical part of his brain told him she was a liability, a beacon for trouble. But the rest of him, the part he usually kept locked down tight, just hurt seeing her like this. He got up, retrieved the small medkit, and knelt beside her again. He cleaned the cut on his own forehead first, then gently checked her for injuries. Aside from the profound energy depletion, she seemed physically unharmed. Her skin was still cold, though. He hesitated, then draped his own worn flight jacket over her shoulders. It looked absurdly large on her slender frame. Stirred, her eyelids fluttering. Her dark eyes opened, focusing on him slowly. The faint indigo light pulsed just once. A weak hum vibrated through her, barely audible. Kale, her voice was a thread of sound. "Thank you." "Don't mention it," he said gruffly, adjusting the jacket. "Just trying to keep my navigator functional." He met her gaze. The pain was still there, but beneath it something else flickered. Gratitude, connection. Whatever it was, it resonated with the turmoil in his own chest. He couldn't stand the coldness of her skin. He remembered the warmth that usually radiated from her, the way her touch sent jolts through him. On impulse, driven by something beyond logic, he took her hand again. "You said resonance strengthens," he said, his voice low. "Sharing, becoming more. How does that work?" Lyra looked at their joined hands, then back at his face. The indigo light flickered a little brighter. "Requires openness, trust, a merging of currents." She paused, gathering strength. "Physical contact amplifies." He swallowed. Physical contact, merging of currents. This felt dangerous, intimate in a way that went far beyond the playful touches and charged proximity they'd shared before. But seeing her so weak, so vulnerable, "Show me," he said softly. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. She hesitated, searching his face. Then she gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod. She turned her hand within his grasp, pressing her palm flat against his. Felt a faint tingling, like the precursor to the fuzzy feeling, but weaker. "Focus, Kale," she whispered, her voice gaining a fraction more strength. "Feel the current within you. Let it reach." He closed his eyes, trying to push past the fear, the ingrained habit of keeping everyone out. He focused on the memory of her hum, the feeling of it inside his chest during the nebula flight. He tried to reach with that feeling towards her. At first, nothing. Then a faint warmth bloomed where their palms met. Tiny spark. Lyra gasped softly, her fingers tightening around his. The indigo light on her skin pulsed, stronger this time, gaining a hint of turquoise at the edges. The hum grew, still weak but audible now, vibrating faintly through their joined hands. He felt it. A delicate thread of energy flowing from him, tentative, hesitant, meeting an equally fragile thread from her. They intertwined, fragile but real. Warmth spread up his arm, chasing away the chill. He felt not drained but energized. And he could feel her energy stirring, responding, drawing strength from the connection. Her skin began to warm beneath his touch. The light patterns intensified, swirling slowly, blues and violets reappearing. Her breathing deepened. He opened his eyes. Lyra was watching him, her dark eyes luminous, filled with wonder and a raw vulnerability that mirrored his own. Her lips parted slightly, revealing the tips of her teeth, not sharp now, just present. The air crackled, not with nebula energy, but with the intensity of their shared current. It flowed between them, a silent conversation, intimate and profound. This wasn't flirtation. This wasn't dominance games. This was sharing, exactly as she'd said. And it felt right. Overwhelming, terrifyingly exposing, but undeniably right. He leaned closer, drawn by the current, by the look in her eyes, by the sudden, fierce need to bridge the remaining distance between them. Her gaze dropped to his lips, then lifted back to his eyes. The invitation was clear, stripped bare of all pretense. He hesitated only a heartbeat, then closed the gap, pressing his lips to hers. The kiss was tentative at first, a question asked in the charged silence of the cockpit. Her lips were soft, cool, carrying the faint echo of her hum. Then, as the resonant current flowing between their joined hands surged, the kiss deepened. It wasn't like any kiss Cale had ever experienced. It was infused with that energy, that shared current. He felt the resonance not just in his chest, but on his lips, a tingling warmth that spread through his entire body. Lyra responded with a sigh, a sound that vibrated against his mouth. Her free hand came up, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer. Her touch sent sparks down his spine, amplifying the connection. He could feel her energy returning, flowing stronger now, drawing from him, yes, but also igniting something dormant within herself. The lights on her skin flared, vibrant turquoise and deep violet swirling together in complex, ecstatic patterns. Her hum filled the cockpit, no longer weak but a rich, resonant thrum that vibrated through his bones, making his teeth buzz. He felt her smile against his lips, and then the delicate, unmistakable pressure as her teeth sharpened. Not with aggression, not even with arousal in the way he understood it, but with the sheer intensity of the energy surging through her, through them. It wasn't frightening. It was exhilarating, a physical manifestation of the power they were sharing. He deepened the kiss, exploring the sensation, the alien texture, the shared breath infused with resonance. His own energy rose to meet hers, a willing offering. His hands moved, one still holding hers, palm to palm, the other sliding around her waist, pulling her closer against the confines of the seat. He felt the lean strength of her, the warmth now radiating from her skin, the subtle flick of her tail against the bulkhead. This was more than physical. It was emerging, a blending of energies, raw and overwhelming. He felt her surprise, her pleasure, her uncertainty mirroring his own, all transmitted through the current flowing between them. It stripped away layers of sarcasm, of guardedness, leaving him feeling exposed, yet incredibly connected. They broke apart, breathing heavily, foreheads resting against each other. Lyra's eyes were dark pools, luminous with unshed tears and swirling light. Her sharpened teeth were still visible in the faint curve of her lips. The hum surrounding them was a tangible presence, a warm, protective cocoon. "Cale," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. "I felt you." "I felt you too," he admitted, his own voice hoarse. He traced the intricate light patterns on her cheekbone with a thumb. The skin pulsed warmly under his touch. "Are you okay?" She nodded, a slow, languid movement. The vibrant light softened slightly, settling into a steady, warm glow. Sharp edges of her teeth retracted, leaving only the familiar points. "Better, stronger," she searched his eyes. "You gave." "You took," he countered softly, but there was no accusation in it. Seemed like a fair trade. A real smile touched her lips, gentle and unguarded. "It is the beginning of joining." The word didn't terrify him anymore. It felt inevitable, right. He leaned in again, capturing her lips in a slower, deeper kiss. This time there was less raw energy, more tenderness. Exploration, a silent acknowledgement of the barrier they had just irrevocably crossed. He felt the last of his resistance crumble, washed away by the tide of resonance, by the simple, undeniable truth of her presence against him. He wasn't just protecting her anymore. He wasn't just helping her find her way. He was binding himself to her, current to current, breath to breath. As he kissed her, tasting the faint ozone and starlight on her lips, feeling the steady thrum of her life force intertwining with his own, Cale knew with terrifying certainty that his solitary path had just irrevocably merged with hers. There was no going back, and deep down, hidden beneath layers of ingrained cynicism, he didn't want to. The thought was both terrifying and liberating. He was hers, and somehow in the humming silence of the wrecked skiff, adrift in a sea of cosmic fire, she was his. They stayed like that for a long time, lost in the quiet intimacy, the shared current a gentle ebb and flow between them. Cale eventually coaxed more systems online, enough to limp out of the nebula's embrace and into the relative quiet of deep space. Lyra, energy restored, though still subdued, helped him navigate, her connection to the currents, proving invaluable where the damaged sensors failed. They worked together seamlessly, anticipating each other's needs, the earlier banter replaced by comfortable silence and quick, understanding glances. The physical connection remained, a hand lingering on an arm, shoulders brushing, the constant low hum a comforting presence now, not an invasive one. They found a small, uninhabited moonlet orbiting a gas giant, a place to make proper repairs and plan their next move. Landing the skiff near a cluster of crystalline rock formations, Cale felt a sense of weary relief. They were safe for now. As the engines powered down, Lyra turned to him, the lights on her skin soft, contemplative blues. "They will search for the signature flare," she said quietly. "The energy surge, it was loud." Cale nodded grimly. "The masking tech might hide the skiff, but they'll know we were in that sector. They'll narrow their search." He ran a hand over the console. "Repairs will take time. We need parts I don't have." "There are resources here," Lyra said, looking out at the crystalline landscape shimmering under the gas giant's reflected light. "The crystals resonate, contain energy." Cale looked dubious. "You want me to power the ship with rocks?" "Not power," she corrected gently. "Amplify focus. What little energy we have, make it more, enough to reach somewhere better." She met his gaze. "It will require joining again, deeper this time." Cale's breath caught. Deeper. The memory of their shared current, the intensity of the kiss, the feeling of connection was still fresh, potent. He felt a thrill of anticipation mixed with a healthy dose of fear. He was still new to this resonance, this alien intimacy that felt more profound than anything he'd ever known. "Okay," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "Okay, deeper. How?" Lyra's gaze held his, serious, trusting. "We must align fully, body and energy, no barriers." She reached out, tracing the line of his jaw with cool fingers. The touch sent a familiar jolt through him, but softer now, infused with tenderness. "It is the Zalosian way, to share strength, to face danger, to bond." Bond, there it was, the word that used to send him running for the nearest airlock. Now it just felt like the next logical step. Terrifying, yes, but necessary. "Right." He covered her hand with his, turning his head to press a kiss into her palm. "All right, Sparkles," he murmured against her skin. "Let's bond." They left the skiff, stepping out onto the moonlit surface. The air was thin, cold, but breathable. The gas giant filled half the sky, casting shifting patterns of light across the crystalline formations. It was eerily beautiful, silent save for the faint, high-pitched singing of the crystals themselves. Lyra led him towards the largest formation, a towering spire of translucent blue crystal pulsing with faint internal light. She placed her palm against it, closing her eyes. Her own lights flared, mirroring the crystal's blue, her hum deepening, resonating with the structure's song. "It is strong here," she whispered, opening her eyes. They glowed with borrowed crystal light. She turned to him, holding out her other hand. "Are you ready, Cale?" He looked at her, the glowing skin, the tendrils framing her face like starlight, the faint outline of her teeth, the trust shining in her dark eyes. He thought of the crash, the fear, the shared danger, the unexpected tenderness. He thought of the hunters, the map, the uncertain future. And he knew he couldn't face it alone. He didn't want to. He took her hand. The current sparked instantly, stronger than before, a tangible cord linking them. "Ready," he said, and this time he meant it with every fiber of his being. Lyra smiled, a slow, radiant expression that made the crystals around them seem to hum louder. She drew him closer, towards the resonating spire, towards a depth of connection he could fathom, but was finally willing to explore. The universe outside faded, leaving only the two of them, the singing crystal and the powerful, undeniable current pulling them together. The energy flowing from the crystal spire washed over them, amplified by their joined hands, their proximity. Cale felt it seep into his bones, a clean, potent force that resonated with the current already building between him and Lyra. Her hum deepened further, matching the crystal's harmonic frequency, and the light patterns on her skin became dazzlingly complex, shifting through the entire spectrum. She guided his other hand to the crystal, and he gasped as the raw energy surged through him, overloading his senses for a moment. It wasn't painful, but it was immense, ancient, far beyond human comprehension. Lyra's grip tightened, anchoring him. "Focus on me, Cale," her voice resonated, cutting through the sensory flood. "Our current. Let the crystal's energy flow through us. Merge it." He forced himself to concentrate, finding the familiar thrum of their connection amidst the overwhelming power of the spire. He channeled the crystal's energy into that bond, feeling Lyra do the same. Their shared current ignited, transforming from a stream into a raging river, blazing with borrowed starlight and their own generated heat. Lyra turned fully towards him, pressing her body against his. The contact was electric. Through the thin fabric of their clothes, he felt the heat of her skin, the thrum of her energy, the solid presence of her. He wrapped his arms around her, pulling her tight, burying his face in the curve of her neck where the light pulsed strongest. She smelled of ozone, starlight, and something uniquely her. Her arms encircled him, hands splayed against his back, channeling the energy, deepening the circuit. Her sharpened teeth grazed his shoulder, not a threat, but an intimate claiming in the midst of the energy storm. He tilted her head back, seeking her lips. The kiss was explosive, fueled by the crystal's power and the raw, untamed energy of their bond. It wasn't gentle or tentative now. It was demanding, consuming, a fusion of mouth, breath, and pure resonance. Clothes became an intolerable barrier. Buttons were fumbled, fabric hastily pushed aside. Skin met skin, and the connection blazed nova bright. Kale gasped as her bare skin, pulsing with light and heat, pressed against his chest. It felt like touching a live star. Her hands explored his body with an urgent curiosity, learning the shape of him, the texture of his human skin, her touch sending shockwaves through his system. He reciprocated, mapping the smooth, warm contours of her back, the unexpected strength in her limbs, the sensitive fins along her spine that flared at his touch. The light show on her skin responded to his every caress, swirling, brightening, communicating pleasure, desire, overwhelming sensation directly to his eyes, bypassing the need for words. Her hum vibrated against his chest, sinking into his soul, a primal song of joining. They sank to the crystalline ground at the base of the spire, still connected to its energy, still locked in their embrace. The need was overwhelming, a force as undeniable as gravity. There was no room for hesitation, for guardedness. Only the raw, desperate urgency to merge completely, to fulfill the promise of the resonance that had drawn them together. As he entered her, she cried out, a sound that was both pain and pleasure, her body arching against his. The light within her skin exploded, momentarily blinding him. He felt the resonance peak, a tidal wave crashing through them both, dissolving the boundaries between self and other. It wasn't just physical joining. It felt like their very essences were intertwining, sharing memories, emotions, fragments of self in the overwhelming flow of the current. He saw flashes behind his closed eyes, star fields he'd never navigated, alien landscapes bathed in unfamiliar suns, echoes of Zylosian memory, loss, and desperate hope. He felt her sense his own past, the loneliness of the void, the cynicism built like scar tissue, the hidden yearning for connection he'd always denied. In that moment, joined physically and energetically at the heart of the crystal's song, they truly saw each other, stripped bare. Her sharp teeth grazed his lip as she kissed him fiercely, a mark of possession, of acceptance. He met her intensity, pouring all his fear, his hope, his unexpected, terrifying love into the rhythm of their joining. The release, when it came, was cataclysmic. A supernova of shared energy, sensation, and emotion that left them trembling, gasping, clinging to each other as the crystal's song slowly faded around them, leaving only the sound of their breathing and the deep, steady hum of their intertwined currents. Kale held her close, stroking her back as the vibrant lights on her skin softened to a warm, contented glow. Her head rested on his chest, her tail curled possessively around his leg. The sharpness of her teeth had receded. He felt utterly drained, yet more complete than he had ever felt in his life. This was it, the bonding, the joining. He hadn't just shared energy, he'd shared himself. And in return he'd received not just her strength, but her trust, her history, her heart. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head, breathing in her unique scent. The fear was still there, a faint tremor beneath the surface. The future was uncertain, dangerous. Hunters were still out there, but now they would face it together, resonating. Joined stronger. In the aftermath, nestled together against the cooling crystal spire, a comfortable silence settled between them. Kale traced the now softly glowing patterns on Lyra's shoulder, marveling at the intricate detail, the way they shifted with her breath. She stirred, tilting her head back to look at him, her dark eyes soft, searching. "Kale," she began, her voice husky, laced with the resonant hum that was now as familiar to him as his own heartbeat. What we shared, the memories, the feelings. He nodded, understanding what she couldn't quite articulate. The intimacy of the energy merge went beyond physical pleasure. It was soul-deep, revealing. I felt it too, he said quietly. Saw things, felt you, he hesitated. Your people, the scattering, the loss. Lyra's glow dimmed slightly, sorrow touching the edges of the light. It was a dark time. We were betrayed, hunted for our ability to resonate, to connect. They feared it, tried to extinguish it. She touched his cheek. But it cannot be extinguished. Not fully, it seeks connection, like finding you. He leaned into her touch. Me, I'm just a washed-up pilot trying to stay off Imperial radar. You are more, she insisted softly, her eyes intense. Your current, it was hidden, guarded, but strong. It resonated with mine even before this. She gestured between them, encompassing the bonding. Perhaps you sought connection too, Kale, even if you denied it. He couldn't argue, not anymore. The loneliness he'd carried for so long felt distant now, replaced by the warmth of her presence, the steady thrum of her energy intertwined with his. He had been seeking something, someone. He just hadn't known it until a sharp-toothed alien fell into his life. He smiled, a genuine, unguarded expression. Maybe you're right, Sparkles. He kissed her gently. So, what now? We fixed the ship, sort of. Amplified the power core with your rock-singing trick. Lyra sat up, pulling his old jacket back around her shoulders. The determination returned to her eyes, overlaying the softness. Now we use the map. The resonance is clear now, amplified by our joining. I know the way to the refuge, to Cathar. Cathar, Kale repeated. The name felt right. Think others made it there. I hope, she said, her voice filled with fierce longing. I must know. I must try to gather the scattered sparks, reignite our flame. She looked at him, laying a hand on his arm. Will you come with me, Kale, to Cathar? It may be dangerous, the hunters. Wouldn't miss it, he interrupted immediately. The thought of letting her go, of facing the void alone again, was unbearable. His place was with her now, wherever the current took them. Besides, he added, a familiar sarcastic glint in his eyes, someone needs to fly the ship. Galactic vibes are great for navigation, but lousy for docking procedures. Lyra laughed. A bright, resonant sound that made the crystals around them hum faintly in response. Her teeth flashed, sharp and happy. You will learn, Kale, to trust the current. Baby steps, he grinned, pulling her close for another kiss. As they gathered their things and headed back towards the waiting skiff, hand in hand, the twin suns of the system began to rise, painting the crystalline landscape in hues of orange and pink. Kale felt the steady pulse of Lyra's energy beside him, a constant reassurance. The path ahead was unknown, fraught with peril. They were two disparate souls, a human cynic and a Xylosian exile, bound by circumstance and an inexplicable, powerful resonance. But looking at Lyra, her face illuminated by the dawn, her eyes full of hope and determination, Kale felt something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Not just connection, but belonging. A shared future. It was a terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly irresistible prospect. They climbed into the cramped cockpit of the skiff, settling into their seats. This time, the proximity felt natural, comforting. Lyra closed her eyes, reaching out with her senses, her hum deepening as she locked onto the resonant frequency of the hidden refuge. Kale powered up the engines, the amplified core humming smoothly. He plotted the initial course corrections. Lyra murmured, trusting her guidance implicitly now. As the skiff lifted off the moonlit, leaving the singing crystals behind, Lyra opened her eyes and smiled at him, a smile full of promise, warmth, and just a hint of sharp-toothed danger. Ready? She asked. Kale met her gaze, his heart full. Ready. He engaged the drive and the small ship surged forward, leaving the gas giant and its secrets behind, hurtling towards Cathar, towards the unknown together.